All right, first of all, I want to praise Yahweh for the opportunity to stand before you and talk about a subject that is very near and dear to my heart. It is something I've studied and pondered on for a really long time, and it's a subject of being strong and courageous. And I know a lot of people use the term for spiritual meanings, but I want to talk about it in a literal meaning. I believe that there will come a day when the people of Yahweh will come to a crossroad. You'll choose whether or not you're going to stand for Yahweh or not. Will you be able to purge the evil from your midst, or will you allow it to linger and lead you and your family astray? Today, we'll read a good bit from Joshua, as well as Deuteronomy, Numbers, and Jasher. We're going to see what it is to be strong and courageous from a literal point, and what it looks like to be a coward and afraid. The Torah is the key to life with Yahweh, and the book of Joshua is what it looks like when Yahweh's people walk in it. To me, Joshua is the benchmark of what is possible if Yah is first in your life. The study is not one for the timid, as we're going to see the side of Yahweh that is not warm and fuzzy, but the side that we should fear and respect. It is one of brute force and awesome strength. In Joshua, we see the true magnitude of the power of Yahweh. And I believe that if Yahweh is with you, it doesn't matter who or what is against you. The first thing I'm going to get into is what it looks like when you're not strong and courageous. One of the first instances I find is the story of the 12 spies when they go into the land. And it's in Numbers 13:2. And send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the children of Israel. Send one man from each tribe of their fathers, everyone a leader among them. And we'll just skip down to 25. And it's 25 through 33. And they returned from spying out the land after 40 days. And they went and came to Moshe and Aaron and all the congregation of the children of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. And they brought back word to them and to all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. And they reported to him and said, We went to the land where you sent us, and truly it flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. But the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are walled and very great. And we saw the descendants of Anak there too. And the Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, while the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains. And the Canaanites dwell by the sea, along with the banks of the Jordan. And Caleb silenced the people before Moshe. And he said, Let us go up at once and take possession, for we are certainly able to overcome it. Now, Caleb is one of my heroes. He just get after it. But the men who had gone up there with him said, We are not able to go up, for they are stronger than we. And they gave the children of Israel an evil report of the land for which they had spied out, saying, The land through which we have gone as spies is a land eating up its inhabitants, and all the people whom we saw in this are men of great size. Not some of them. All are of great size. And we saw there the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, of the Nephilim, and we were like grasshoppers in our eyes, and so we were in their eyes. And to me it is interesting how it says, all of the people were of great size. Not some, not one or two, not just this king or that king. Every single person in the land was of great size. So we're going down to Numbers 14, and we're going to read 1 through 12. Then all the congregation lifted up their voices and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the children of Israel grumbled against Moshe and Aaron. And all the congregation said to them, If only we had died in the land of Mitzrayim, or if we had died in the wilderness. And why is Yahweh bringing us out of the land to fall by the sword, that our wives and our children should become prey? Would it not be better for us to turn back to Mitzrayim? And they said to each other, Let us appoint a leader and turn back to Mitzrayim. Then Moshe and Aaron fell on their faces before the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. And Yehoshua son of Nun and Caleb son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their garments. And they spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, The land we passed through to spy out is exceedingly good land. If Yahweh has delighted in us, and he shall bring us into the land and to give it to us, a land which is flowing with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against Yahweh, nor fear the people of the land, for they are our bread. Their defense has turned away from them, and Yahweh is with us. Do not fear them. But all the congregation said to stone them with stones. So we see Israel cowering down in the sight of their enemy. And Yahweh's response to this is he wanted to destroy them again. And we read that. And then the esteem of Yahweh appeared in the tent of meeting before all the children of Israel. And Yahweh said to Moshe, how long shall I be scorned by these people? How long shall I not be trusted by them with all the signs I have done in their midst? Let me smite them with pestilence and disinherit them, and I'll make a nation greater and mightier than they. And when I read this, I come to the conclusion that Yahweh has no tolerance for cowards or unbelief. This episode, and there's another episode that happens, and this is account that's in Jasher. And it's not mentioned in Torah, but it's interesting nonetheless. It's Jasher 85, and it's verses 1 through 5. And it says, and the king Arad, the Canaanite, who dwelt in the south, heard the Israelites had come by the way of the spies. And he arranged his forces to fight against the Israelites. And the children of Israel were greatly afraid of him. And he had a great heavy army. So the children of Israel resolved to return to Mitzrayim. And the children of Israel turned back about the distance of 3 days' journey unto Mazareth Beni Yaakon. And they were greatly afraid on the account of King Arad. And the children of Israel would not get back to their places. So they remained in Beni Yaakon for 30 days. And when the children of Levi saw the children of Israel would not turn back, they were jealous for the sake of Yahweh. And they rose up and fought against Israel, their own brothers. And they slew them a great body. And they forced them to turn back their place to Mount Hor. So, this took place in the 40th year of wandering. This wasn't when they just started. This was at the end, when they were getting ready to go take possession of the land. And to me, it's interesting how the sons of Levi took this matter, and they just took it on. And I think that they were tired of wandering in the desert, because they knew understand what happens. And to me, it gets back to obedience. Like Tyner always, Nicole tells Tyner, you know, slow obedience is no obedience. So it would seem that Levi was tired of the cowardice and was ready to claim Israel's inheritance. So I think we can see from these few instances where being disobedient out of fear can lead. So now we can start talking about what it looks like to be strong and courageous. And firstly, I want to touch on the Canaanite kings of Sihon and Og. They were mighty Canaanite kings, and according to Jasher 85:35, and the elders of Moab said, behold the two kings of the Amorites, Sihon and Og, who were more powerful than all the kings of the earth. And they could not stand against the children of Israel, so how can we stand before them? So, and then Jasher 85:3 through 28, and the children of Israel sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, saying, let us pass through the land. We will not turn into the fields or in the vineyards. We will go along by the king's highway until we have passed thy border. But Sihon would not suffer the Israelites to pass. So Sihon collected all the people of the Amorites and went forth into the wilderness to meet the children of Israel, and he fought against Israel in Jahaz. And Yahweh delivered Sihon, king of the Amorites, into the hand of the children of Israel, and Israel smote all the people of Sihon with the edge of the sword, and avenged the cause of Moab. And the children of Israel took possession of the land of Sihon from Aram unto Jabuk, unto the children of Ammon, and they took all the spoils of the city. And Israel took all the cities, and Israel dwelt in the cities of the Amorites. And all the children of Israel resolved to fight against the children of Ammon, to take their land also. And Yahweh said to the children of Israel, do not besiege the children of Ammon, neither stir up battle against them, for I will not give to you their land. Of the children of Israel hearkened the word of Yahweh, and did not fight against the children of Ammon. And the children of Israel turned and went up by the way of Bashan to the land of Og, the king of Bashan. And Og, the king of Bashan, went out to meet the Israelites in battle. And he had with him many valiant men and a very strong force from the people of the Amorites. And Og, the king of Bashan, was a very powerful man. But Narun, his son, was exceedingly powerful, even stronger than he was. And Og said in his heart, behold, now the whole camp of Israel takes up a space of 3 parsa, Now I will smite them at once without a sword or a spear. And Og went up to Mount Jahaz and took therefrom one large stone, the width which was 3 parsecs. And he placed it on his head and resolved to throw it upon the camp of the children of Israel, to smite all the children with that stone. And a messenger of Yahweh came and pierced the stone upon the head of Og, and the stone fell upon his neck. And Og fell to the earth on the account of the weight of the stone upon his neck. And the time Yahweh said to the children of Israel, Be not afraid of him, for I have given him and all his people and all the land into your hand. And so you shall do to him as you did to Sihon. And Moshe went down to him with a small number of the children of Israel, and Moshe smote Og with a stick at his ankles and his feet, and he slew him. And the children of Israel afterward pursued the children of Og and all his people, and they beat and destroyed them till there was no remnant left. And how big was King Og? Well, we have Deuteronomy 3:11 says, For only Og, sovereign of Bashan, was left of the remnant of the Rephites. See, his bedstead was an iron bedstead. Is it not in Rabbah of the children of Ammon, 9 cubits in its length and 4 cubits in its width, according to the cubit of a man? Anybody know how big the cubit of a man is? That's a cubit of a man? That's a cubit of a man? Now, we have measurements of cubits, but they're not cubits of a man. Is that cubit of a man 6 feet? You see what I'm saying? It's a cubit of a man. It's not a cubit. It didn't say a cubit. It said a cubit of a man. So he has to be big enough to pick up a stone that's big enough to smash the entire tribe of Israel. So if he's 50, 60 foot tall, that's more possible than if he's 15 foot. But from what I read. Anyway, he was a big man, regardless. And it's what is also interesting is to see Moshe in action. We don't depict Moshe as a warrior. We depict him as a leader, as a man of Yahweh. But here we see him in action, and he's actually the one that kills Og. So interesting. Now we move into one of my favorite books outside of the Torah, and it's Joshua, because it gives me hope for what is coming upon this earth. And we'll start in Joshua 1:7. And it's only be strong and very courageous to do according to all the Torah which Moshe my servant commanded you. Do not turn from the right or the left, so that you act wisely wherever you go. That can be said for all of us. Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, nor be discouraged, for Yahweh your Elohim is with you wherever you go. The phrase, be strong and courageous, is mentioned 4 times in 17 verses of the first chapter of Joshua. And I often wonder why Yahweh said it to Joshua so many times. Is it because Joshua understood what awaits for him and Israelites across the Jordan? He was one of the ones that went in and spied it out. I don't know if we'll ever see or face something like the sons of Anak, but I am sure that we'll come against something that we believe that there is no way this can be defeated. But, as we'll see, there is nothing, and I mean nothing, that we cannot overcome as long as Yahweh is with us. And everyone here knows the story of Jericho, how the men of Israel marched around the city for 6 days. On the 7th, they marched 7 times and blew the shofars, and the city walls fell, and they descended upon the city and killed everyone in the city, men, women, cats, dogs, goats. They killed everything. And Jericho was not a normal city. It was the fortress of Canaan. It was the city. It was when they said we saw cities walled to the heavens. They were talking of Jericho. It was a massive city. And to me, I think that's why Yahweh wanted to start there, because he let the land know we're coming, and there ain't nothing you can do. But Jericho was only the beginning in a long line of battles the Israelites found themselves in. And the next we have is the Battle of Ai. And it is the only battle that we read where the Israel actually lost some of their soldiers. And it was due to Achan. And we read that in Joshua 7:1-12. But the children of Israel committed a trespass regarding that which was under the ban, for Achan, son of Carmi, son of Zabdi, son of Zerah, of the tribe of Yehudah, took of what was under the ban, and the displeasure of Yahweh burned against the children of Israel. Now Yehoshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which was beside Beth-awan, on the east side of Bethel, and spoke to them, saying, Go up and spy out the land. And the men went up and spied out Ai, and they returned to Joshua and said to him, Let not all the people go up, but let about 2,000 or 3,000 men go up and smite Ai. Do not make all the people toil up there, for the people of Ai are few. And about 3,000 men went up from there from the people. But they fled before the men of Ai, and the men of Ai smote about 36 men. For they pursued them from the gates as far as Shabrim, and smote them on their descent. So the hearts of the people melted and became like water. And Joshua tore his garments and fell to the earth on his face before the ark of Yahweh until evening, both he and the elders of Israel. And they put dust on their heads. And Yehoshua said, O Master Yahweh, why have you brought your people over the Jordan at all, to give us into the hand of the Amorites to destroy us? If only we had been content to stay beyond the Jordan. O Yahweh, what do I say when Israel turns its back before its enemies, and the Canaanites and all the inhabitants of the land hear, and shall surround us, and cut off our name from the earth? What then do you do for your great name? And Yahweh said to Yehoshua, Rise up. Why are you lying on your face? And here we see another instance of disobedience and Yahweh's response. And Israel has sinned, and they have also transgressed my covenant which I commanded them. And they have even taken some of which was under the ban, and have stolen and deceived, and put it among their own goods. And the sons of Israel shall not be able to stand before their enemies. They are going to turn their backs before their enemies, for they have become accursed. I am not with you anymore, unless you destroy that from which is under the ban in your midst. But Joshua and the people persevered. They they got rid of their stuff, and they took care of that, as that's another part of the story. But Joshua and the people persevered, and Yahweh once again allowed them to continue their conquest of the promised land. So we read in Joshua 8, and we'll go from 1 to 29. And Yahweh said to Joshua, Do not be afraid nor discouraged. Tell all the soldiers with you, and rise up. Go up against Ai. See, I have given into your hand the sovereign of Ai and his people and his city and his land. So you shall do to Ai as the sovereign as you did to Jericho and its sovereign. Only its spoils and its livestock you take as plunder for yourselves. Set for yourselves an ambush for the city behind it. And Joshua and all the soldiers rose up to go to Ai. Joshua chose 30,000 mighty brave men and sent them away from the night, and commanded them, saying, See, you are going to lie in ambush against the city, behind the city. It's interesting how he went from 3,000 to 30,000. Kind of took them serious this time. And where did I lose myself? Yeah. See, you're going to lie in ambush in the city, behind the city. Do not go very far from the city, but all of you shall be prepared, while I and all the people who are with me approach the city. And it shall be, when they come out against us, as formerly, that we shall flee before them, and they shall come out after us until we have drawn them from the city. And those saying, They are fleeing before us as formerly, and we shall flee before them, and they shall rise from the ambush and seize the city. And Yahweh your Elohim shall give it into your hands. And it shall be, when you capture the city, that you burn it with fire. Do according to the word of Yahweh. See, I have commanded you. And Joshua sent them out, and they went and lied in ambush and stayed between Bethel and Ai on the west side of Ai. But Joshua stayed the night in the midst of the people. And Joshua rose up early in the morning and inspected the people, and went up, and he and the elders of Israel before the people of Ai. And all the soldiers who were with him went up and drew near, and came before the city and encamped on the north side of Ai, in the valley between them and Ai. And he took about 5,000 men and set them in ambush between Bethel and Ai on the west side of the city, so that they stationed the people, all the armies, was on the north of the city, and the rear guard on the west of the city. And Joshua went that night into the midst of the valley. And it came to be, when the sovereign of Ai saw it, that the men of the city hastened and rose early and went out against Israel in battle, he and all his people, at the appointed place before the desert plain. But he did not know that there was an ambush against him behind the city. And Joshua and the Israelites let themselves be beaten before them, and they fled by the way of the wilderness. And all the people who were in Ai were called together to pursue them, and they pursued Joshua, and were drawn out of the city. So there was not a man left in Ai or Bethel who did not go out after Israel. And they left the city open and pursued Israel. And Yahweh said to Yehoshua, stretch out the spear that is in your hand towards Ai, for I give it into your hand. And Joshua stretched out the spear that he had in his hand toward the city, and the ambush rose up quickly from their place, and they ran into the stretching out of his hand, and they entered the city and took it, and hastened to burn the city with fire. And the men of Ai looked behind them and saw smoke of the city rising to the heaven. And there was no power in them to flee this way or that, for the people who had fled to the wilderness turned back on their pursuers. For when Joshua and Israel saw that the ambush had captured the city, and the smoke coming out of the city, they turned back and smote the men of Ai. The others also came out of the city against them, so that they were in the midst of Israel, some on this side, some on that side, and they smote them until there was none left, and none had escaped. But the sovereign of Ai they caught alive, and they brought him to Joshua. And it came to be, when Israel ended slaying all the inhabitants of Ai in the field, in the wilderness where they pursued them, and when they had fallen by the edge of the sword until they were consumed, that all the Israelites returned to Ai and smote it with the edge of the sword. And it came to be that all who fell that day, both men and women, were 12,000, all men of Ai. And Joshua did not draw back his hand, with which he stretched out his spear, until he had put all the inhabitants of Ai under the ban. Only the livestock and the spoil of the city of Israel they took as bounty for themselves, according to the word of Yahweh, which he had commanded Joshua. And Joshua burned Ai, and made it a heap forever, a ruin unto this day. And he hanged the sovereign of Ai on a tree until evening. And at sunset Joshua commanded to take the corpse down of the tree, and throw it at the entrance of the gate, and rise over it a great heap of stones to this day. And I like that story because you can see that Yahweh he's a pretty good field general. You can see the trap he laid for the people of Ai. But from here, it starts to get interesting. And the word is getting out that the Israelites are a force to be reckoned with. And that they are so much so that all the kings of Canaan are starting to rally together to come against Israel as one force. So here we read in Joshua 9, 1 and 2. And it came to be when all the sovereigns who were beyond the Jordan, in the hills and in the low country, and all the coast of the great sea toward Lebanon, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite heard, and they gathered together to fight Joshua and the Israel on one accord. And we go to Joshua 10, and we'll go 1 through 27. And it came to be whom Adonai-Sedek, sovereign of Jerusalem, heard that Joshua had captured Ai, and had put it under the ban, that he had done to Ai and its sovereigns as he had done to Jericho and its sovereigns, and that the inhabitants of Gabon had made peace with Israel, and were in their midst. And they feared greatly, because Gabon was a great city, as one of the royal cities, and because it had greater than Ai, and all its men were mighty. And Adonai-Sedek, sovereign of Jerusalem, sent to Hoham, sovereign of Hebron, and to Piram, sovereign of Yarmouth, and to Yephah, sovereign of Lachish, and Debir, sovereign of Eglon, saying, come up to me and help me, and let's go smite Gabon, for it has made peace with Joshua and with the children of Israel. So the 5 kings of the Amorites, let's see, right, I lost myself. The sovereigns of Jerusalem, the sovereign of Hebron, the sovereign of Yarmouth, and the sovereign of Lachish, and the sovereign of Eglon gathered together and went up, they and all their armies, and camped before Gabon, and fought against it. And the men of Gabon sent to Joshua at the camp of Gilgal, saying, do not withdraw your hand from your servant. Come up quickly and help save us. For all the sovereigns of the Amorites who dwell in the mountains have assembled against us. And Joshua went up from Gilgal, he and all his soldiers with him, all his mighty brave men. And Yahweh said to Yehoshua, do not fear them, for I give them into your hand. Not one of them does stand before you. So then Joshua came upon them suddenly, having gone up all night from Gilgal, and Yahweh threw them into confusion before Israel. And they smote them with a great slaughter at Gabon, and pursued them along the way that goes to Beth Horon, and smote them as far as Adzek to Megdah. And it came to be, as they fled before Israel, and were in the descent of Beth Horon, that Yahweh threw down large hailstones from the heavens on them as far as Azekah, and they died. There were more who died from the hailstones than from the sons of Israel had slain with the sword. And Joshua spoke to Yahweh in that day, when Yahweh gave the Amorites over to the children of Israel, and he said, before the eyes of Israel, sun, stand still over Gabon, and the moon in the valley of Elon. So the sun stood still, and the moon stopped, till the nation avenged itself upon its enemies. Is it not written in the book of Joshua? Thus the sun stopped in the midst of the heavens, and did not hasten to go down for an entire day. And there has been no day like it, before it or after it, that Yahweh listened to the voice of a man, because Yahweh fought for Israel. Here is one of the times Jasher is mentioned in Scripture, so we'll read what Jasher has to say about the incident, and that's Jasher 88, and it's 55 through 65. And when Adonizek, king of Jerusalem, heard all the children of Israel had done to Jericho and Ai, he sent to Hoham, king of Hebron, Param, king of Jermah, and Jopha, king of Lachish, and Debir, king of Eglon, saying, Come up to me and help me, that we may smite the children of Israel and the inhabitants of Gabon, who have made peace with the children of Israel. And they gathered themselves together with the 5 kings of the Amorites, and went up with all their camps, a mighty people, as numerous as the sands of the seashore. And all the kings came up and encamped before Gabon, and they began to fight against the inhabitants of Gabon. And all the men of Gabon sent to Joshua, saying, Come up quickly to help us. For all the kings of the Amorites have gathered together to fight against us. And Joshua and all the fighting people went up from Gilgal, and Joshua came suddenly to them. And he smote the 5 kings with a great slaughter. And Yahweh put them to shame before the children of Israel, who smote them with a terrible slaughter in Gabon, and pursued them along the way that goes to Beth Horon unto Magadah. And they fled from before the children of Israel, and whilst they were fleeing, Yahweh sent upon them hailstones from heaven, and more of them died by the hailstones in the slaughter of the children of Israel. And the children of Israel pursued them, and they still smote them in the road, going on and smiting them. And when they were smiting, the days declining toward evening, and Joshua said, in the sight of all the people, Sun, stand thou still upon Gabon, and the moon in the valley of Azon, until the nation shall have revenged itself upon its enemies. And Yahweh hearkened to the voice of Joshua, and the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and it stood still for 36 moments. And the moon also stood still and hastened to go down for a whole day. And there was no day like it, before or after it, that Yahweh hearkened to the voice of a man, for Yahweh fought for Israel. And to me, this is an awesome story. I mean, it's in my wildest dreams. I can't imagine what this battle must have been like. It states that the slaughter would put them to shame. That means that Israel came through them like you can't fathom what this must have looked like. Because Israel did not lose a single person, but they killed as many people as there were the sands of the seashore. Yahweh had a lot to do with it. He smote them with the hailstones, but it must have been a true bloodbath. I mean, it's absolutely devastating what this must have been like. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of men in a field just laying out. They're dead everywhere. Yeah. And there's horses and chariots, and it was devastating. You know, how long did it take to bury the dead people? I mean, we don't think about stuff like that. I mean, it's just the magnitude of this battle must have been staggering to Joshua even himself. He had never, seen carnage of this magnitude. I don't know if anybody ever has. And I'm sure Joshua thought that the fighting had to have been over, because I'm sure he couldn't imagine there's anybody left. I mean, there's people everywhere. They were just dead. But little did he know. So we'll go on to read from Jasher 89. This is 39 through 44. When at the time the Jabin king of Chezar heard all that Joshua had done to the kings of the Amorites, Jabin sent to Jobat, king of Midian, and Laban, king of Shimron, to Jephthah, king of Ashath, and to all the kings of the Amorites, saying, Come quickly to us and help us, that we may smite the children of Israel before they come upon us, and do unto us as they have done to the other kings of the Amorites. And all the kings hearkened to the words of Jabin, king of Chezor, and they went forth with all their camps, 17 kings. The last one was 5. This is 17 kings. This is 3 times the amount of people that were at the first battle. And their people were as numerous as the sands of the seashore, together with horses and chariots. They were innumerable. They came and pitched together at the waters of Merom, and they were met together to fight against Israel. And Yahweh said to Joshua, Fear them not, for tomorrow, about this time, I will deliver them up, all slain before you. Thou shalt thou horses, you will burn them with chariots of the fire. And Joshua with all the men of war came suddenly upon them, and smote them. And they fell into their hands, for Yahweh had delivered them into the hands of the children of Israel. So the children of Israel pursued all the kings with their camps, and smote them until there was none left. And Joshua did all this as Yahweh had spoken of him. And here's the account of Joshua. It's a little bit different. Joshua 11, 1 through 8. And it came to be when Jabin, sovereign of Hatzor, heard, and he sent to Job, son of Madon, and the sovereign of Shimron, and the sovereign of Akshah, and to the sovereigns who were on the north, and the mountains, and the desert plains south of Kinneroth, and the low country, and the heights of Dor to the west, the Canaanites in the east and the west, and the Amorites, and the Hittites, and the Perizzites, and the Jebusites in the mountains, and below Hermon, and the Lamb of Mitzpah. And they went out, they with all their armies with them, as many people as numerous as the sand of the seashore, with very many horses and chariots. And all the sovereigns met together, and they came and camped together at the waters of Merom to fight against Israel. And Yahweh said to Joshua, do not be afraid of their presence, for tomorrow about this time I am giving all of them over to Israel slain. Hamstring their horses and burn their chariots with fire. Joshua and all his soldiers with him came against them suddenly by the waters of Merom, and they fell on them. And Yahweh gave them into the hand of Israel, and they smote them and pursued them to the great Sidon, and to Mitzpah, Mayam, and to the valley of Mitzpah eastward, and they smote them until no survivor was left of them. So it's just, they went from one battlefield where there was hundreds of thousands to dead to this next battlefield where there's more. So you're probably talking close, from what I understand from reading this, probably close to 1 million people were just slaughtered in 2 days. We're not talking about a month's conquest. We're talking 2 days. The children of Israel gone through 22 kings, Canaanite kings. These aren't regular dudes. All these people are big men. And they went through them like there was nothing. Nothing. So Israel continued its conquest, but none of the battles remained were like these 2 battles. For 5 years Joshua battled the kings of the land and conquered 31 kings in all. We're told Joshua walked with Yahweh all his days. And I happened upon this verse while I was preparing this study, and it sure seems to fit what I'm trying to say, and it's Joel chapter 2. And it's 1 through 11. And it says, blow a ram's horn on Zion, and sound the alarm on my set-apart mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the earth tremble, for the day of Yahweh is coming, for it is near, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick darkness, like the morning clouds spread over the mountain. A people, many and strong, the like of whom has never been seen, nor ever shall be seen again, to the ears of many generations. Ahead of them a fire has consumed, and behind them fire burns. Before them the land is like the Garden of Eden, and behind them a desert waste. And from them there is no escape. Their appearance is like the appearance of horses, and they run like steeds. As the noise of chariots they leap over mountaintops, as the noise of a flaming fire consuming stubble, as a mighty people set in battle array. Before them people are in anguish. All faces become flushed. They run like mighty men. They climb the walls like men of battle. Everyone goes on his way. They do not break ranks. They do not press one another. Everyone goes his path. They fall among the weapons. They do not stop. They rush on the cities. They rush on the walls. They climb into the houses. They enter the windows like a thief. The earth shall tremble before them. The heavens shall shake. The sun and the moon shall be darkened, and the stars withdraw their brightness. And Yahweh shall give forth his voice before his army. For his camp is very great, for mighty is the doers of his word. For the day of Yahweh is great and very awesome, and who does bear it? So now that we see what happens when Yahweh is with you, you have to ask yourself again, when the time comes to be strong and courageous, will I be a disobedient coward? Will I run away? For again, I say to you, there is nothing that is impossible if you walk in obedience to Yahweh. I hear people say, I am old. I don't know how to fight. I don't know this or I don't know that. It doesn't matter. All that matters is you walk with Yahweh. Full faith in Yahweh. Let Yahweh guide your path. And when he tells you to go, don't walk, run headlong into whatever obstacle is there, because he will not fail or forsake you. Hallelujah.